רקטות נורו על בית שאן, קריית שמונה לשדרות במשך למעלה מ10 שנים. האיום היה לכל אורך הדרך. האיום לא נולד אתמול, האיום לא נולד עם כיפת ברזל, הוא היה פה מאז ומתמיד. יכולות טכנולוגיות מתקדמות אפשרו לנו להציע למערכת מיירט שהוא affordable בהשוואה לאיומים הקיימים. מערכת כיפת ברזל מורכבת מסנסורים, שהתפקיד שלהם זה לגלות שיצאה רקטה. המערכת מחשבת את מקום הנפילה הצפוי של הרקטה. אם היא נופלת במקום שהוא לא מיושב, ההחלטה היא מאוד פשוטה, לא מיירטים רקטה כזאת. אם רואים שהרקטה נופלת במקום יישוב, מתבצע תכנון יירוט. טיל נעול על המטרה, רודף אחרי המטרה, מגיע לקרבתה, מפוצץ אותה בתזמון הנכון, שמבטיח שבנוסף לזה שהרקטה נפגע, גם חומר הנפץ שנמצא בתוך הרקטה נשמד לחלוטין.
When the last round of violence broke a few months ago, we here at Rafael immediately knew that we have a lot of work to do. We felt obligated to do everything we can, day and night, to deploy the new system that will contribute to saving lives of our friends and our colleagues around the country. I'm a graduate of the Technion, class of 98, the Electrical Engineering Department. The teamwork is really important at the Technion, the same as in Rafael. You meet in Rafael the people you studied with at the Technion. There is a lot of sharing of information, and that probably contributed to the success of the system.
הניצחון במבצע האחרון, עמוד ענן, הוא ניצחון של כיפת ברזל. זה היה חלום של המשפחה שלנו שאני אגיע לישראל ואני אגיע לטכניון, ואני מאוד שמח שהוא יתגשם, ואני שמח כפליים שהגעתי לרפאל ואני יכול לממש את היכולות שלי שצברתי גם בטכניון, כמו למשל
עבודה מאוד מאומצת, עמידה ביעדים.
יכולת חשיבה מחוץ לקופסה. אני מאוד שמח שאני יכולתי לתרום לפרויקט כזה חשוב שמציל חיים של נשים.
This is where the talents are. This is where the best minds of the evolving generations of engineers are studying.
מרבית הסטודנטים שרפאל מוכנה לקלוט הם סטודנטים שמגיעים מהטכניון עם רמה מקצועית מאוד גבוהה. אנחנו מוצאים את עצמנו לא פעם במצב שבו עובד רפאל ותיק מאוד, יושב בחדר עם מהנדס צעיר מאוד שהגיע רק עכשיו מהטכניון, אחד מפרה את השני בצורה מדהימה. הוותיק נותן לצעיר ניסיון, הצעיר מביא לוותיק את הקדמה האחרונה של הטכנולוגיה כפי שהוא למד בטכניון.
When the system is working operationally and all the world sees it on TV and us amongst everybody else, and we see that the damage could have been worse and more people could have been injured or die, this is the point where we really know that we made a difference and lives are being saved every day. So it's a very fulfilling experience.
Chapter 11. High-Tech Tinkerers. Intelligence is where Talpiot has had one of its most dramatic impacts. Following the Agranat Commission's close scrutiny of the failures of intelligence in the Yom Kippur War, the Israel Intelligence Corps was created. The Corps includes the famous Unit 8200, discussed in Chapter 9, which creates software programs, search systems, and internet defense systems to repel cyber invaders. The Intelligence Corps also works on tracking signal-based intelligence, which includes monitoring radio frequencies, tracking telephone calls, as well as other electronic signals. The Corps also monitors and analyzes what is known as open source intelligence. That includes monitoring the media in foreign countries, including newspapers, television stations, and radio broadcasts. In many authoritarian countries, the government uses state-controlled media to control its citizens, and sometimes sends messages to the West by way of their media. One of the first intelligence field assignments given to a Talpiot graduate was in 1982. Ofer Kinrot, recruited to Talpiot's second class in 1980, found his way into Israel's burgeoning new intelligence forces. Israel was pulling out of the Sinai at the time. Prior to that, when they had bases and intelligence equipment in the Sinai, they could listen to and watch the Egyptian army. Now the army needed capabilities to access the same intelligence, but from further away. I worked on making that a reality. Another game-changing Talpiot graduate has become a modern-day Israeli Renaissance man. For security reasons, his name can't be published. He's a tinkerer by nature, and since he was a child, he has liked to build things. After graduating from Talpiot's coursework at Hebrew University, he declared his desire to be in the real Green Army. Equipped with small arms, he would get his chance as a roving tank killer. He became Talpiot's first commander in the Armoured Car Division, and he set a sparkling example for others to follow. For 4 years, his job was to track enemy tanks with small bands of soldiers and take them out, without armour and without a lot of backup. As he moved up the chain, he was offered a chance to go to battalion commander courses. In 1997, he told the army, no thanks. He would serve as a tank hunter in the reserves, but he wanted to get back to the technology that helps give Israel a leg up over its enemies. His next stop was an intelligence technology unit. It all started with an interview with the head of the electro-optics division. I remember he asked me, "You finished Talpiot 4 years ago, and what do you want to do?" I said I didn't know. I knew I wanted to be back in research and development in technology. He took out a very small camera and said, "Anything you find interesting here?" "Oh, I like cameras," I answered. In my anti-tank unit, I was actually working with cameras, signal processing, electro-optics and cameras. It was a perfect match. He had the formal education and the army field experience to help design what was needed for other combat troops. This was actually exactly how Talpiot was supposed to work. A promising and motivated soldier gets an early and excellent education. He then hits the field. Afterwards, he combines both to help give Israel access to more efficient and more lethal weapons, making the army better and stronger. I started out designing a small board with a camera and signal and video processing unit, then onto larger components and larger cameras and optic systems, he continues. The device I was working on was to be used for special tasks and missions. They were for the intelligence community, not necessarily the army, he says slyly. While he would not confirm it, it's likely devices he worked on wound up helping Israel's various security agencies that monitor and police the hostile Arab populations living in cities and towns east of Israel's major population centers. We were making very, very tiny devices. They would put them where tiny devices were needed most. These kinds of devices help many people to do their jobs. Many of these missions nobody will ever hear about. One of Israel's most immediate and pressing problems comes from Gaza. Why Gazans aren't a threat to the overall security of the nation? Thousands of rockets have been fired from Gaza into Israeli civilian communities by Hamas, Islamic Jihad and other terrorist groups. Terrorists have attacked and attempted to break into Israel dozens of times, and on one occasion in 2006 killed 2 members of a tank unit and took another soldier, Gilad Shalit, hostage. In order to discourage border-crossing terrorism, the IDF set up a ring of surveillance stations to protect communities near Gaza without having to engage anyone who appears to be approaching the border in a threatening manner. Brigadier General Eli Polak, head of the Field Intelligence Corps, told Aviation Week, "Our job is to provide surveillance along Israel's borders. To do this, we use various intelligence, surveillance and reconnaissance systems which help us track the enemy and assist ground forces in quickly locating attempting hostile infiltrators." Here again, Talpiot graduates have played an outsized role in helping to develop and install sophisticated monitoring mechanisms. Ophir Zohar, 14th Talpiot class, served in a technology unit in the IDF. He says, "The most advanced staff in our circle was dedicated to building better technology for IDF intelligence. It was our job to come up with solutions for problems the Army thought were impossible to solve." Created by a team working on new components for tank units, the groundbreaking technology known as the Trophy system addresses one such unsolvable problem. Trophy is designed to protect tanks against rocket-propelled grenades and other deadly and more accurate anti-tank weapons. Israeli defense contractor Rafael, in connection with the Elta Group division of Israel Aerospace Industries, has outfitted Israeli Merkava tanks and some armoured personnel carriers with it. Trophy has its roots with Professor Azriel Lorber, who taught hundreds of Talpiot students the art of military technology during his 19 years of affiliation with the program. Professor Lorber served in the IDF Armoured Corps in the 1950s, rising to the rank of major. He received a master's degree in mechanical engineering from the University of Pittsburgh and then a doctorate in aerospace engineering from Virginia Tech. After his studies, Lorber moved back to Israel and eventually went on to work for two major Israeli defense contractors, Israel Aircraft Industries, which later changed its name to Israel Aerospace Industries, and weapons maker Israel Military Industries. Though originally rejected, the idea for the trophy system was later adapted, modified, and finally brought to fruition by Rafael. While the IDF was initially reluctant to install the trophy system because of its cost, the Second Lebanon War in 2006 made it clear it had to move forward. 52 Israeli Merkava tanks were hit by anti-tank missiles fired by Hezbollah. Israeli military leaders came to believe that the next war would be against a tougher, stronger, larger army that would put its tanks in even greater danger. If this is what Hezbollah could do, they didn't want to see what would happen if the IDF suddenly had to fight Hezbollah, the Lebanese armed forces, Syria, Hamas, and perhaps even fighters from other fronts all at the same time. As Lorber had originally planned back in the 1980s, the tank has an on-board warning and radar system that is activated by incoming projectiles. Those projectiles are identified, and then a shotgun-like firing mechanism shoots a defensive projectile in buckshot form. The goal is for that defensive projectile to spread out its fire, connect with the incoming projectile, and then force it to prematurely explode before hitting the outer shell of the tank. In June 2012, the Jerusalem Post reported that State Comptroller Micha Lindenstrauss had heavily criticized the Minister of Defense and the IDF for not expanding the use of Trophy faster to protect more tanks, armored vehicles, and especially the Namel armored personnel carrier. During Operation Protective Edge in July and August 2014, Trophy got its first battle use. It successfully detonated and destroyed a Hamas anti-tank rocket, saving both the tank and the crew inside. The army had been tight-lipped about the details of that first successful combat use of Trophy, but in no uncertain terms, a spokeswoman for the IDF says it has now been proven to be successful in combat. The Israel Military Industries Company, also known simply as IMI, has developed Iron Fist, closely based on technology used in the Trophy. It is stronger than the Trophy in that it is capable of deflecting more powerful tank shells, not just the handheld anti-tank weapons that Trophy is capable of defeating. While the Israeli Ministry of Defense did approve usage of Iron Fist in 2009, that decision was later overturned, and as of now, the technology and the know-how behind it has been put on ice. While the Iron Fist and Trophy systems are designed to protect Israeli soldiers in ground combat, usually not far from Israel's population centres, the long arm of Israel is the Israeli Air Force. It can strike without warning all over the Middle East and well into Africa. In recent years, Western media reports say Israeli pilots have been called upon to hit targets carrying Iranian weapons moving throughout Africa, Syria and Lebanon, as well as weapons-making plants in places as far away as Khartoum, Sudan, 1,100 miles away from air bases in southern Israel. After his Talpiot academic career at Hebrew University came to a successful conclusion, Marius Nacht went on to work in aerospace. He helped design and manufacture airborne systems for the Laviv fighting jet. At the time, the Israeli-made Laviv rivaled the F-16 and the MiG, the MiG. But there were problems. First off, it was very expensive. Should a country with only 6 million people spend hundreds of millions of dollars on making a fighter jet? Or would it be more cost-effective to take the money Israel gets from the United States after signing peace agreements with Egypt and Jordan, who also get US money for defense for signing those treaties, and buy proven fight and flight-tested American planes? A second big issue was pressure from the American government against the project. The United States didn't want to compete with the Laviv in the lucrative international defense market if at all possible. Israel always has been nervous about its reliance on other countries for defense. After the Six-Day War, France, Israel's main supplier for fighter aircraft, suddenly decided it was better to align itself with the Arabs than with Israel.